more debate on whether Apple should stop selling AirTags, and is Apple developing an Echo Show competitor? This is MacVoices. Today's edition of MacVoices is supported by Truebill. Get control of your subscriptions at truebill.com/MacVoices. Welcome to MacVoices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. This is part 2 in a rather intense discussion of whether Apple should stop selling AirTags due to stalking concerns, or whether it just goes with the territory if you're talking about trackers of any kind. Let's go back and let the panel do the talking.
If I took an AirTag,
legally, they have no expectation of privacy.
If I took an AirTag and put it on a long fishing line and tied it to my spouse, is that AirTag on public property? Is that legal?
Okay, now you're getting into hypothetical. I can't say the next word because then Chuck has to edit later on.
The edit button.
But the what ifs you're getting into now are
not a what if that I think is going to happen. It's a what if, of considering what's private property and what's public. Again, well, if somebody's taking a picture of somebody on public property and that person doesn't see that happening, I would consider that stalking because that person's literally stalking.
Well, you might, but the law doesn't. If I'm out front mowing my lawn, I'm in public.
Mm-hmm.
So
technically, you have no expectation of privacy at that point.
Exactly.
So instead of getting an AirTag, I ask my neighbors to tell me if they see my spouse leaving the house and tell me exactly where she's going. That's what you're doing.
Well, but we're
talking. They can't tell you where she's going, because they don't know. But they could tell you that
along the way
left the house, and I'm sure that has happened since
absolutely since time began.
But if I tell my neighbors, up the street, and I have friends, I say, "Hey, Frank, Joe, and Ralph, tell me if you see my wife walking in that direction."
Perfectly legal.
That is legal.
Yeah,
perfectly legal.
Yeah, and we're off topic. We're off topic. We're talking about the AirTags. We're not talking about how people stalk other people. Brittany, I want to get you in, and I don't usually do this, but from you're the only woman on the panel, and I would like to have your perspective on this because I think it seems the stereotypical situation right now involves women being stalked. I'm not sure that's
the more common, but definitely not the exclusive situation. I should say, first of all, I've never been the victim of domestic abuse or violence. And so I am only speaking from I have vaguely been associated with these things and not a position of knowledge. Also, my other point of bias is I had been waiting for the AirTags for like 10 years. So, and I admit it, that's a bias. I've been waiting for them for a long time. Tile was not cutting it for me. And that's true. But from purely the other risk standpoint, it sucks. It sucks a lot that there are jerks that have taken this product that became more popular and more knowledge was built around it. More people are abusing Tile today than 2 years ago because they learned about it when people talked about the AirTags. And that's just true. And the cat is out of the bag.
Yeah.
And if Apple's out of the game, that means the only person in this game who really gives a crap about privacy, even if they're not doing as much as they should be, now they're not in the game and they don't have a vested interest in protecting people from the other devices that could perhaps say, hey, did you know there's this thing near you? Did you know there's this thing near you? That is a possible thing that we could have to potentially alert us to other devices that are these, third-party ones that people were abusing a long time ago. And I don't think I want Apple with no interest in this game.
That's an interesting perspective. That's a really interesting perspective. But I have, and David's on deck, but I want to ask you to follow up. You just said Apple isn't doing everything they should be. What else should they be doing? What else could they be doing at this point?
That is a really good question that I don't feel like I'm an expert on privacy enough to do. But the fact is, there are still people who are abusing it and getting away with it. Like the fact that that is still happening, that they are not all being caught, says that there's something else. But also, you know what? Release an Android app. Make it so the people who are on Android who might be being tagged by an AirTag get an alert. That's a thing that they could do.
They did.
Oh, did they? Great. Is it
Yep.
working?
I just
Nope.
real fast. If everybody has an Android, seriously, the AirTag doesn't work because you need the iPhone. So that kind of negates that issue.
Well, no, there is an app
Okay,
for
good.
Android.
There's an app, but the Find My Network relies on an iPhone to work. So if I stick
Right.
an AirTag in a car full of Android users, that tag doesn't work. You're not doing anything.
But that's not what she was asking.
I know, but she's saying you're not giving the Android.
It's not about for the Find My Network, about for alerting people. And that is great. It would be nice if it sounded like you said it wasn't working.
The trick is you have to run the app and let it search for the device.
You know, I have rarely been as proud as tech companies as I was at the beginning of the pandemic when Google and Apple got together and said, you know what? We can come up with a way to track things that preserves an anonymity. And maybe this is one of those issues that they should get together on.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Fair point.
And that really may be the best solution that would serve the most people. But again, I can't get into the nitty gritty because I'm not a privacy person. But the fact that the people are reporting it, I tend to believe that. And if there are folks getting around it or using other things, yeah, it'd be great to have a lot less of that happening. But I don't know that would happen less without Apple in the game.
Webb in the chat room says that Jim was correct. A PI cannot go onto private property to quote unquote follow someone. And he says, interestingly enough, he was thinking of buying some AirTags to use for an upcoming trip to track his property. So, there you go. Let's see, David, I've got you up and then Frank.
I just want to make one point about the technology of it all. Your article, Jeff, says that you interviewed a privacy advocate. Okay, well, Apple's done their very best, in my eyes, of reading everything that's been going on with the AirTag. That they're doing their best to protect what they can. They did react, and like Jeff Gamet's point was, Tile has been doing this for 7 years and never had anything said about what the AirTag was doing. So if it was such a big problem, and we know Apple is very big on privacy, and they've spouted it so many times over the years for everything, why is it off the market? So I mean, I think Apple is doing a decent enough job that they're protecting it, but you also have to worry: is there a flaw somewhere beyond what they've already protected? And I don't think there is a huge flaw in what Apple's doing. We have no idea what Tile's doing. So, and Tile has said nothing publicly what they do to protect it.
Yeah, good point. Good point. Frank?
I think we're sort of missing the point here. We're focusing a lot on the technology. And the way I look at humans, you may think it pessimistic, but there isn't a thing a human can do that'll surprise me. Now, Jeff, I see you going after Apple. Now, Apple is the big name, so everybody wants to knock them off the pedestal. When I was an Apple user in the early day of computer groups, we did the same thing with Microsoft. Anything that they tripped up on. Now, let's take the technology analogy a step further. Ford or any other, pick the car manufacturer of your choice. They have seat belts. They're going to claim they have all the safety things in place they can. A car is a great thing from go to point A to point B. Mm-hmm. I can go to the store. I can go to the movies. I can go to the drugstore. I can go to the ER. I can take my kids where they need to go. I could go with, if I was still married, I could go out to dinner, stuff like that. Yet, there are still idiots that are going to take that same vehicle and have plowed it into crowds of people, murdering many of them. And I don't know that you can hold that down to the technology, because anybody that, like Warren was saying, anybody that wants to really do something nefarious, they're going to find a way. I mean, look, you could take a tree branch as a lever. If something fell on somebody and you needed something to as a lever to lift whatever the object is lying on a person, and there was a tree branch, you could use that tree branch to lift up that object so they could get out. At the same time, if you were nefarious, you could take that tree branch and beat them senseless. So I don't know how if somebody wants to do something nefarious, they're always going to find a way. Always. Humans are like that. They've been that way.
Criminals
I wish
are
I
not gonna
disagreed
change.
with you, Frank, but you're not going to change that. Brittany, you said something I thought that was interesting, and I believe it was you because there were so many comments going back and forth. But it does seem like that this tracking thing has become kind of publicized to an unprecedented degree. And I think it's because it has Apple's name associated with it. You never heard anything about all the spy trackers that you could purchase 10 years ago, 5 years ago. If they were in use, they were in use, but nobody ever heard about them. Now all of a sudden, because it's an AirTag, it makes headlines.
And there's two reasons. One is things with Apple's name in it get published, and that's a thing. They're an attention grabbing company, but also that their existence has been more public. It is possible that there are people who were being jerks before who were not tracking, who are now tracking because the idea has now occurred to them.
Right.
Because it's in the public voice, but also because of the alerts letting you know. I mean, I keep getting the ones that my dad's tracker is nearby. My dad is not stalking me. He just has a tracker that's at the same residence that I spend my work days. And I've been getting these alerts, and because people are getting the alerts, you're getting notified of it. So yes, I think it's increased, but also we know about it more because it's Apple and it gets published, and because there's nothing on a tile. Maybe there is now, but there wasn't when I last used a tile saying, hey, this tile's following you and it's not yours. And so tile got caught less. But yes, also people were like, oh, that's a great idea. I could use that. And they were being jerks before, but they have a new tool. And that's true. And that sucks. And we need to be on our guard, and a little bit like with internet security, right? What you need to do is be just barely one step behind to cut off as many jerks as possible.
Well, and Warren brought up or I think Warren at least talked about it. The person attaching an Apple Watch to the wheel of the car. I mean, I think that kind of says it all. That okay, so are we going to if they eliminate tiles, are we going to start seeing that? Or whoever mentioned Android phones, is it going to be?
But the batteries on those will die a lot faster.
Yeah,
they will die a lot faster, but they will still serve the same purpose. And so it's not as efficient at tracker or at tracking or stalking, but it's still stalking. There's still a tool there for them.
Technology is changing all the time. Tomorrow, next year, there's going to be even a smaller, better tracker. I mean, this is evolution of this is just an evolution of what's been out there.
But does that mean that we just let it go and give it a pass?
No, but also saying, okay, Apple's going to stop making it la, 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 let's pretend like the problem goes away, also doesn't fix it.
No, it doesn't. And that's not what I proposed. And
no, I know it's not. But I fear that is what would happen by default.
Could be.
If Apple's not doing it anymore, what is there to talk about?
Right.
And if we need to say it, we're not beating on you. We're beating on the topic. We're not.
No, I understand. I just want, I do want to be clear that I'm not taking this on just because it's Apple. You
aren't.
I love Apple. My house is filled with Apple products. I won't allow Windows in my house.
But this isn't the first time we've talked about AirTags on this show, and that was because it was Apple. And those articles that we talked about on this show before became popular enough for us to talk about them because it was Apple. We didn't talk about it when it was Tile.
We're also talking about because the Find My network is huge compared
exactly.
to that's the only. I mean, Apple's doom is that their thing works better because of the network of what they did. They turned you want to talk about privacy? They literally took almost every iPhone and I think the M1 Max at this point and turned them into beacons.
Any Mac. It doesn't have to be an M1.
Right. So you want to like, be
Right.
paranoid about
And-
that. I mean, AirTags aren't the only thing that tells me that something, we're Apple people. We leave our house now, and how many notifications do we get on our phone saying you left this behind, you left that behind?
You can turn those off.
I know, but I like to know how many things. I left my 3 AirTags behind. I left my iPad. It's right. It's not. So we're basically attaching ourselves to these devices.
Mhm.
We're almost like basically connecting ourselves to these devices at this point. We're the target. They're the beacons at this point. And that's what they did. They built a network out, and that's scary. That's the scary part. It's because the network's good. And the GPS tracker that I got was probably not as good as the AirTags because there's more iPhones than there are satellites for GPS.
This edition of MacVoices is supported by Truebill. Get control of your subscriptions at truebill.com/MacVoices. Did you know that 40% of people recently said that they're overwhelmed by the number of subscriptions they pay for? The other 60% probably forgot they subscribed in the first place. If you're not sure how to take control of your subscriptions, you need Truebill. The nice thing about subscriptions is that you can just set it and forget it. Unfortunately, you are still being charged after you forget it and don't want it anymore. Get in control of your subscriptions with Truebill. Knowing that if you got rid of all the subscriptions you don't need or forgot about, you could save hundreds is very different from going to all the trouble to actually remember, find, and cancel them. That's why you need Truebill. Truebill makes it easy to cancel the subscriptions that you don't want anymore and keep the ones you do. So start canceling your unused subscriptions at truebill.com/MacVoices. Go right now, truebill.com/MacVoices. It could save you thousands a year. Truebill.com/MacVoices. Thanks to Truebill for their support of MacVoices. Jim, you're awfully quiet. You
am.
You are. And it looks like you got your green screen fixed, so you phased in to the conversation.
You hadn't changed your shirt is what you did.
I did. My cat was knocking things over, so I went off to do him, kick him out of the room. And while I was at it, I thought, let's change my shirt and put on my hat. And lo and behold, now my green screen works. So lesson learned, you cannot wear, I knew I couldn't wear a green shirt, but apparently I can't wear a blue shirt either. To me, this is, kind of an Apple tech podcast. And, this seems like a political discussion to me. So I thought I should be quiet because, like Jeff said, it doesn't seem to me like Apple should be singled out. Perhaps these devices should not be legal, or there should be some penalty for using them incorrectly. I think there's possible arguments for that. But that's not an Apple argument. That's something for Congress or whatnot. And, in the general, now I'm going to really make everybody mad, because in the general case of, devices, sometimes devices are used in ways that are hurtful and very damaging. I think if we want to start looking at things like that, let's start with handguns.
I think that would be a good place to start as well.
We'll go to abortion after that. We'll just do the.
That's not a device.
Yeah. No. If we're just going to talk about topics where we're going to kill each other, that won't.
Yeah.
Well, no, but that's a device that definitely kills thousands of people a year.
Right. So are the more criminals,
if we want to regulate devices, that seems like a place to start for me ahead of AirTags. I'm not saying but that's you can't touch that. So,
Jim, I've been resisting. I'm glad you brought it up, and I'm glad I'm not the one that brought it up, because that's one of the extreme versions or extreme examples. But you could, look, you say the same thing about steak knives and baseball bats and
Yeah.
frying pans and a lot of other things that can be put to uses that are detrimental to human beings. Now, I know that there's a way over the line, but at some point you have to ask some of those questions. That are you going to
Don't let people buy tanks?
Well, yeah, there you go. But where do you draw the line, and where do you recognize that things can be abused? Virtually anything can be abused. Maybe not quite as effectively as an AirTag for the purpose of stalking, but other things can be abused for the purpose of stalking. There are other options out there, and I thought Brittany's point was really, really important. That here we have somebody that is manufacturing the thing that seems to be getting the most publicity about this, but they also have been making steady steps to try to make it better.
So in that sense,
I mean,
Apple is
I think
the
you could argue
catalyst.
I was going to say, I think you could argue that, the fact that Apple is making these, it could be a good thing because somebody's going to make these unless they're made illegal. Tile was already making them and other people would have done it. And, until Apple came along, nobody had any concept that maybe that this should be mitigated at all. So
they did.
Who did?
The laws were out there before the AirTags.
No, I mean, no manufacturer. None of these other trackers made any effort at all to try to mitigate, and make them not, less useful for stalking.
Right, but I'm sure all these GPS trackers that existed before Tile and AirTag had plenty of interactions with law enforcement and lawyers. And
no, what I'm saying is, until Apple came along, none of those manufacturers, they didn't care whether people did something bad with. They're just like, we're selling this and making money, and if you're a bad guy, we're not going to look. And Apple was like, oh well, yeah, maybe somebody bad might use this, so how can we try to mitigate that? So I think that's a good thing. If we just, I'm not really sure where I fall on this. I don't have any AirTags, although, I haven't been going anywhere, and I've been thinking, well, maybe I might start going somewhere. Maybe I'd like to have an AirTag on my luggage, or on my diabetes medicine. But I haven't done that yet. But I could see that there, even before this, it was clear that they could be used before today's discussion. That wasn't my first idea. So I don't know, but it just seems to me it's not an Apple centric thing. It's a question of, and I'm not sure how you would get the genie, back in the bottle either. It's like somebody, said, well, you can buy an Android phone for $50. I'm not sure you can make these effectively illegal anymore, but maybe we could, and maybe we should try.
There might be another answer to that, though.
And there's also good uses on tracking people with these devices. There's legit.
Yeah, like people
are.
that have Alzheimer's.
That's it. That's
Sure.
where I'm going from. So my parents, my friend has a dad that lived out, far away from him. Now they're closer, but he started getting dementia and he started just driving around on his own.
Mm-hmm.
And my friend came to me, he's like, I need help. I want to put a tracker on his car. And this was before AirTags and Tiles, or maybe around when Tiles were out. And he went on Amazon and he put a search in for tracker. And one came in the mail, and I think it was like, $40. And I think he had to pay $5 a year or something stupid. He put it on the guy's car. And, again, if somebody wants to do that, this happened, people were doing it before AirTags and Tiles. So he, so, right, you got Alzheimer's, you got kids under 18, right? You might want to track your child, and you're allowed to do that as a parent. I've
got one on my dog.
I got one on my dog too. Dave knows I had it on this dog, and I had an AirTag holder that was too low, so she got it and chewed it through it.
OtterBox makes some really good ones.
I got a good one on her now.
I do think, Jeff, in your article, and I think you said it here too, that you said, well, thought Apple should stop selling these. And I don't see that as one of the options. Either they should be, continue, or the thing should be shut down, full stop. And, at that point, you shut down the Find My network and say, no, you can't find anything.
Yeah. And see, I wouldn't be okay with that.
Well, I'm not saying I would, but it seems to me like
Right.
the middle ground of saying, well, if you've already got one, then stock away.
Yeah, that is the problem, isn't it? For people that already have them, because it would be a huge disaster, A, for people with legitimate uses for these, and B, just for, Apple as a company to suddenly have to recall all of these devices because of a few nefarious individuals.
Well, they don't have to recall the devices. They just have to make them stop working.
Well, I mean, if they do that, then they're going to, it basically would need to be like a recall, or they would have class action lawsuits, and, Lord knows they have enough of those already. One of my readers brought something up a couple hours ago, and this is highly intelligent man. He writes for us occasionally, Dr. Brooks. If you remember Dr. Brooks, Jeff, he proposes, and I don't know how this would work for the AirTag, but he proposes a time of monitoring and evaluation to try to determine if someone is using the device for not Dr. Bob, Dr. Brooks, W. Abdullah Brooks. He writes for us. I know. Oh, yeah, different doctor. Dr. Mack is who you're thinking of. Anyways, Dr. Brooks suggests monitoring and evaluating how people are using these to pick up if they're being used for stalking purposes. I don't know how you would do that. It's something I want to talk to him more about, but it's an interesting idea.
It's, you're talking about content moderation, basically, for millions of devices. That's just not possible. If Apple was to stop selling them, then that would be, any court case, I would think that's an immediate admission of guilt for, anybody that says, oh, well, I had something bad happen to me because of an AirTag. Well, Apple has just admitted that, they're liable, full stop. So you talk about lawsuits.
Brett in the chat room says, does anyone think there's a way for the Find My network to tell the difference when a tag is being used for stalking instead of just tracking objects?
No.
If so, they could prevent the tag from reporting its location until it could be verified it's used properly. I don't see how you would ever decide that.
I don't see either. And, this is something that Albert Kahn pointed out is, these are being weaponized for stalking, and Apple thought they could find a way to not prevent that. And so far they haven't been able to.
But the tag is real fast. The tag is to find things that you lost, and it's not to find things that were stolen, because what had happened at this point, right, is because of all this, of the stalking issues. Now anybody that steals anything of yours knows that there's an AirTag attached to whatever they just took. So right now they negated, by alerting you that you have an AirTag with you, they negated the whole category of getting an AirTag to find something that was stolen.
Not necessarily. This is where you get into this strange area of making it less useful. And we're going to go down the door.
If somebody steals something that's an AirTag is in, they're going to know soon enough that there's an AirTag with them. Because it'll start to beep in theory. Unless it's in theory.
And Apple said from day one,
no, because it comes on their phone.
Stolen items.
No. It's not that it beeps. If they have an iPhone, their iPhone says there's an AirTag with you.
If they have an iPhone.
Oh yeah. if they don't have an iPhone, if they have Android phones, you're not tracking them either because there's no Find My
This is the
network.
way to get thieves to buy out iPhones.
You can still track it because all you have to do is bring it within 30 feet of an iPhone, iPad, Mac, any device on the Find My network that has an internet connection and comes within 30 feet, that AirTag is going to broadcast itself.
Right, but if it's closer to a phone or an iPad, the iPad's going to say, "There's an AirTag here." That's not
only
mine.
after several hours, and that's if they don't change the identifier in the meantime.
Well, I mean, you could go the same argument to the stalkers, right? We could bring it right back the other way.
Well, and two, I mean, think about the part of the discussion we had earlier. You know, if I tag Brittany, put it on Brittany, if I slip it into Brittany's pocket, you know, I'm following her. But if I drop it into a grandparent's pocket because I'm concerned about them and wandering off because of Alzheimer's, I'm still stalking, tracking, call it what you will, a person. But now I've got what society sees as a legitimate reason. And I am not condoning stalking in any way. So please, nobody misinterpret that. But the thing is, you know, yes, it's either going to work really well to track Brittany and to track my grandparents, or it's not going to track Brittany as well, right. And it's not going to track my grandparents as well.
Right. That's the answer to the question of why it can't be done, because it can't be. It has to.
They're tools.
That's
it's
how
like the internet. You can use it to harass people, or you can use it to make connections with people that you otherwise never would have met.
And it's like, again, we could get the guns too. And I lived in England, and we could, you know, talk about how many people killed each other with cars and knives instead of guns. And, you know, again, are they, you know, are people in America not wanting to kill each other because there's, you know, they have access because of guns, or are they wanting to? If I get a gun, does that make me want to go out and shoot somebody? Is the question, right? I mean, are you a criminal because somebody gave you a gun, right? If guns were in Best Buy for, you know, a 3-pack for $80 on sale, and I walked in Best Buy, I got 3 guns, does that mean I'm going to use them as a criminal? Am I going to become a criminal? And it's the same thing, I think, with stalking, not the same. It's the same with spousal abuse, is what, you know, just initial argument was. And, you know, getting access to these aren't going to turn my mind into a criminal mind like that. Just like if I had 3 guns at, you know, Best Buy that I bought, it's not going to make me want to go out and shoot people. Me, personally.
Yeah. This MacVoices live panel is back in the next edition of MacVoices to continue this discussion. And we also have a little surprise, a little something different that we haven't done on MacVoices Live before. That's all next time. I'm Chuck Joyner. I hope to see you then. Until then, and as always, thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices, or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you MacVoices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.